Welcome to U.S. Immigration. In this video we will discuss about August 2021 and future visa bulletin predictions from the State Department. Charlie Oppenheim, chief of the Visa Control and Reporting Division from the U.S. Department of State, provided some insight and predictions related to the July 2021 and future visa bulletin in State Department's official channel on June 28, 2021. Due to federal holiday, this session did not happen, as mentioned in the July visa bulletin. Mr. Oppenheim prediction covers rest of fiscal year 2021, which runs through September 30. He discussed various points regarding visa wastage. If you are interested in this topic, please stick around till the end of this video. For your immigration news and updates, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to hit that notification bell. Let's get into the video. What Charlie does. Charlie, he issues the visa bulletin each month around 10th and fixes the dates on the bulletin based on demand for visas. Since these visa categories are numerically limited, meaning that only a set number of visas are available each fiscal year, the more demand, the more the dates will move backward or stay the same. If there is less demand, the dates move forward. Important responses from State Department is trimmed and presented in this video. You can check the complete interview in State Department official link. State Department will hold future sessions soon after the visa bulletin is published. The information regarding that will also be published in the visa bulletin. As per the State Department, usage of family-based visas remains low. The usage of family-based immigrant visas remains low due to the ongoing pandemic. This is because over 95% of family-based immigrant visas are processed by consular posts overseas, many of which have very limited visa appointments available. Let's get into general questions before discussing specifically on employment, family, and diversity visa questions. Do you expect any family or employment filing date to retrogress in fiscal year 2021 or 2022?
No, I do not expect that any retrogression of the application filing dates or final action dates will occur in the foreseeable future. Some of the dates will be advanced in the coming months, but at this time, as I mentioned earlier, it's not possible to really estimate the rate at which they will advance. And it's important to remember that the application filing dates are the dates which I believe the final action dates will reach at some point during fiscal 2022.
Can you explain on what is the meaning of current in the visa bulletin?
If there are sufficient numbers in a particular category to satisfy all of the reported demand that I have at the time I'm making the determination of the upcoming month's final action dates, then the category can be considered current. For example, if I determine that I have 3,000 numbers that are available for use during the month of July, and there's only demand for 1,000 applicants, then I can list the category as being current.
When do you expect consulates around the world to be fully functional, as it was before COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, this is the kind of the $64,000 question everybody wants to know the answer to, and it really is not possible to provide an answer. Their overseas posts have been slowly returning to some level of operational status as their local conditions permit. But because of the constantly changing status, the best advice I can offer is for the listeners to monitor the operational status of the post, which is going to be responsible for processing their case. And you can find that on our travel.state.gov website. And that will have typically the latest and greatest information on each post's status.
Why State Department is not providing estimated wait time before the visa becomes available to applicants in the various categories?
In a normal processing year, I tried to provide such updates on about every 3 to 5 months, and I put them in the visa bulletins with an item regarding visa availability. And that usually covers what will happen in the next 3 to 5 months. It's like I said earlier, it's important for people to remember that the applicants become qualified at their own pace, and therefore it can have some fluctuations in the dates. I really haven't provided updates during the last part of fiscal 2020 or for fiscal 2021 because of the constantly changing situation or processing capability at both our overseas posts and in the USCIS offices.
When determining numbers under the annual limit, are you counting only principal applicants?
No. There is both the principal applicant and all derivatives, a spouse, any children, are each counted against the numerical annual limits.
Do you expect fiscal year 2021 family, employment, and diversity visa annual limits will be reached?
Based on the impact with the COVID-19 issues we've had on the processing of cases, it's really too early to say what number use might be. But I can say that both the family and employment final action dates and the diversity visa rank cutoff numbers continue to be established in an attempt to generate sufficient demand to maximize number use under the various annual limits. And we're following the same process in that determination that we would during a normal, quote, normal processing year.
Why would State Department request information from someone if their priority date is not current and they are not eligible for processing?
Well, the State Department uses the application filing dates for our National Visa Center to contact applicants that may become eligible for final action on their case within the next 8 to 12 months. And they request the applicants to assemble and submit certain required documentation so that the applicant can become what we call documentarily qualified after a review of all the documents. And then that demand is reported to the visa office for consideration in the movement of the upcoming month's final action dates. The USCIS may request that adjustment of status applicants whose case had previously been processed but not finalized. For example, one of the cases when the final action date may have retrogressed. The applicant was in some stage of processing, the date retrogressed, they could not be finalized. So the Immigration Service may, when they feel that the applicant is nearing eligibility to be processed once again, they may request that the applicant provide certain required information such as a medical, et cetera, to update so that it can be processed when the date does advance. In both instances, having all of the required information and current information, for example, again, the medicals, can expedite the final processing of the case once a visa number does become available. It's important for applicants to remember that they should not wait until their turn has come up because processing can take some time. So they're better off if they go ahead and provide all the requested information in advance so that their case can be scheduled in an expeditious manner.
With the slow pace of adjudication, do you expect the date and final action chart will reach the date and filing chart?
I think that most of the application filing dates that were announced and posted in October have already been reached in most instances. Any of the application filing dates that are changing now or in recent months, there should be no reason to expect that they'll be reached this fiscal year, but 8 to 12 months down the road, they could be reached. And again, the application filing dates are always where we think the final action dates will be 8 to 12 months after we have originally posted those application dates.
Does a case enter the queue for being interviewed after documentarily qualified, even if the priority date is not current?
Yes, and that's what I said. It's very important for me to have maximum visibility of potential demand for applicants whom the National Visa Center has contacted primarily in the family categories to act in a timely manner, submit all the required documentation, and what happens on a monthly basis, the National Visa Center reports to my office all of the applicants who have become documentarily qualified since the last reports were submitted approximately a month earlier. The cases are only reported one time, and then we hold that information and use it in the determination of the movement of the final action dates. And then once a person's priority date falls within the final action date, then their case is immediately provided a number and the National Visa Center would be scheduling their case. And so that's why I say applicants really need to act on their case in a timely manner when they've been requested information, because they may have been contacted, say, by the National Visa Center in March to assemble documents. If the applicant had done so and been reported to my office, and their priority date was reached for the month of July, they could be potentially scheduled for an appointment in July. If they waited until their priority date was reached to begin submitting the documentation, it's going to take several months before they potentially could be scheduled. So again, it's very important for people to act in a timely manner.
How many visa wastages will be there for EB categories?
At this time, as I mentioned earlier, I could not even speculate how many numbers will not be used under the various annual limits. The best I can say is I would expect the amounts to be very large. Again, given the constraints that have been imposed on processing in the States and overseas because of the COVID situation, it would be somewhat unrealistic to expect that all the numbers could be used based on the limited processing ability hosts and USCIS offices have had because of the COVID-19 issues, limiting, going into work, having people come in, and actually many of the applicants. So for example, if an applicant is required to get a medical or an updated medical, all of the current COVID-19 issues may be limiting the ability for them to get medicals, and that would also prevent the processing of the case.
Let's get into family-based questions and responses from Charlie. Do you expect the worldwide dates continue to advance till September 2021?
Yes, the improving conditions have allowed increased overseas processing. Therefore, the July dates were advanced at an accelerated rate in most preferences and for most countries. With the movement of the dates through September might be somewhat more limited. The Mexico dates were advanced at a very fast pace for the family categories, and that it was because number use in recent months has not been as much as anticipated, but based on the previous movement of the dates. And we wanted to make sure that we maximize number use. And the Philippine family dates were basically held with the exception of the fourth preference, because there the previous movement of the final action dates had generated sufficient numbers under the annual limits. So therefore we did not need to continue moving any except, as I said, the fourth preference.
In the July visa bulletin, the worldwide family fourth preference date is listed as February 8, 2007. What does that mean?
Applicants who have submitted all of the required documentation that has been requested of them and have a priority date before February 8th, 2007 would be eligible to have their final interviews scheduled either at an overseas post or processed by the USCIS offices here in the States. Whenever you see a priority date listed, it represents the priority date of the first applicant who we could not accommodate for processing during that applicable month. And it's important to remember that not everybody with a priority date earlier than the listed final action date has been processed. Applicants process their cases at their own pace and convenience, and therefore fluctuations in demand sometimes impact future movement of the dates, as is evidenced by the Philippine dates basically being held for July.
Does documentarily qualified application includes medical form?
That would be that the medicals are typically done right at the roughly time of interview. If an applicant that is being processed for adjustment of status, as I said, had been interviewed earlier and then could not be finalized because of the retrogression of the employment date, the medical that they provided at that time may have expired, and that's why we tried to limit requesting the medicals until very close to the appointment time, because they are somewhat time sensitive. And in those cases, the USCIS offices may request that the applicant provide an updated medical, so because they think, okay, the movement of the dates is likely to allow that applicant to be processed in, say, July or August. So they want to have the case ready to go so that they can be processed quickly.
How much movement should we expect in CR1 interview letters in embassies in the coming months?
That I couldn't comment on post-specific issues. Again, I think that monitor the post website. They will provide the most up-to-date information of how they're processing among the various categories.
Is there a way for applicant to know if they are documentarily eligible?
Yes, at least for if they're processing the case at an overseas post, cases that have been initiated in recent years, they can monitor the status of their case on the National Visa Center website. They're provided with information of that when they're contacted to begin submitting documentation, and they can monitor where the various documents are in the various stages of processing at our National Visa Center all along, so they can see if something's missing or not. And the National Visa Center would contact them if they had been asked to provide a certain document, say a birth or a marriage certificate, and they had submitted everything but that. The National Visa Center will be in contact with them to say, we still need your birth certificate, or we need the marriage certificate. And only once that's received can you be considered to be documentarily qualified and reported to the visa office for potential consideration of a future appointment. I can't comment on the process used by USCIS. I'm really not familiar with that, but again, State Department side, we're trying to do that. And it's kind of a self-serving process because the National Visa Center was having a large volume of calls coming in. Can you check on my case? Can you tell me where I stand? And having to answer those types of questions prevent them from dedicating staff to other types of processing. So allowing the applicant to go online and check it out themselves is best for both parties, and it's a faster turnaround time, because if say the National Visa Center had to contact me and say, Charlie, you're missing your birth certificate, well, it takes time for that notification to get to me, and it takes time for me to get it back. If I can just go on and list, this is the document I forgot, it's expedites the process.
Any relief for age-out children's?
The Child Status Protection Act does provide some relief for applicants who for example, turn 21 while their case is still pending. That is a very complicated calculation, which I luckily do not have to be concerned with or extremely familiar. I believe, though, that on the travel.state.gov website, there is some information if somebody is interested to determine if they are eligible and how it would apply to their case. So again, the travel.state.gov has a wealth of information to everybody that they can access and hopefully provide answers to most of their questions.
Let's get into diversity visa questions. Do you expect any diversity visa 2021 rank cutoff to be retrogressed?
No, all of the DV rank cutoffs will remain current through the end of the DV 2021 program. One other additional comment in terms of final action dates as we move forward. We do expect that final action dates will be held for an extended period of time once our overseas posts do return to completely normal operating status, most likely sometime in next year that when they'd be held. And the reason being that the dates which have already been established that will provide sufficient demand to probably utilize the vast majority of the 2022 numbers, at least for the first half of the year, potentially moving forward into the second half again.
How does Kentucky Consular Center for Processing Diversity Visa prioritize cases?
The Kentucky Consular Center, KCC, handles all of the documents that are submitted for overseas processing of diversity visa categories. Once again, they would be processing in the order that the cases became documentarily qualified. So it is my understanding that for both the family and employment cases and the diversity cases. A case that was submitted in October would be scheduled for interview before a case that only was reported, became qualified and reported to the visa office in March. So again, we're taking the cases in the order that people became ready, be it for not for the, the issues with COVID and the post-processing limitations.
What purpose was served by making DV 2021 visa numbers available over 100,000 when consulates issued only 20 DV visas?
And we schedule or have the registration period for each year's diversity visa program. We always select enough applicants to help ensure that we can maximize number use under the annual limits. It's important to remember that a lot of people that apply for the diversity visa program, they may not follow through with that registration, even if they're selected for whatever reason. Sometimes applicants will be refused upon their interview, or again, like I said, they may not proceed. When we had the DV 2021 registration period and made the selection of applicants, the registration period was pre-pandemic, and the selection was made last spring, but we have to proceed under the assumption that normal processing could return at some point. That allows us to potentially maximize number use under the various annual limits. If we had not registered applicants and miraculously this COVID had suddenly gone away, then we would have been in the situation where we did not have applicants for the numbers that could have been used. It is also important to remember that all of the diversity information on registration clearly indicates that selection to participate in the program does not guarantee visa availability. So that is a very important thing to remember.
As per the State Department, rapid advancement of employment-based visa categories happens for the rest of fiscal year 2021. Due to the low usage of family-based visas, the potential available employment-based visas for the next fiscal year will be at least 275,000. This will have a positive impact on EB visa availability for China and India. Let's get into the questions. Do you expect the employment dates will continue to advance till September 2021? Do you expect any retrogression?
I believe that they will have some advancement through September, but at this time I really can't estimate how fast that will be. But I do not expect there to be any retrogressions of employment final action dates in the foreseeable future, and managing and slowing the rate of future advancements helps minimize any potential retrogression further down the road in fiscal 2022.
EB5 China date remains the same as it was in October 2020. Do you expect any forward movement of the date in this fiscal year or early next year?
No, I do not expect any forward movement of the China application date before September. There is likely to be some movement in October, but the employment level is right now we have sufficient demand to utilize all available numbers under what the China limit would be, and we will, unless larger amounts are processed during the summer, we will have a sufficient number moving into fiscal 2022. But again, we may see some movement of that EB5 date for application date for China in the month of October or November.
Will EB2 reach July 2012 priority date in October 2021?
The India, the second preference, will continue to advance some. I can't speculate at this time where it will be in October. But again, I do believe many of the China and India dates will be advancing, and they may advance at a rapid pace early in the fiscal year before we start kind of holding back on some of the movements. And again, it's because at this time, we expect that the fiscal 2022 employment limit to be at least 290,000, a second all-time high in a row. So again, we're trying to make sure that we can generate sufficient demand to utilize all the available numbers.
How are priority dates determined?
It's based on the amount of documentarily qualified demand, which has been reported to me on a monthly basis. If you think of the numerical control process as your household budget for the year, and your employer were to hand you a check for your pay to represent for the entire coming 12 months on October 1st. So what you want to do is you have housing expenses, you have insurance, you have a variety of expenses that you have to budget for. And your goal is to reassess your estimates on a monthly basis to redistribute the money. You may have to take some money away from one area and can add it to another, or across the board if your estimates on your needs for the previous months have been. But your goal is to use all of the money, because at the end of 12 months, although you cannot exceed that amount of money, if you haven't used it all, you have to return any leftover money to your employer. So your attempt is to try to maximize number use. And that's what I do. I look at the annual limits. I establish targets of how many numbers I want to utilize on a monthly basis by preference category, and within the preference categories often for particular countries under their country limit. And I weight the allocations typically higher and heavier during the first 8 to 9 months, so that we can kind of ease into the end of the fiscal year without having to have a surge in movement of the date and heavier number use. So you will see, like I said, during the first 8 to 9 months, the dates will move faster. Typically July through September, they will kind of slow down, often hold, or as somebody asked earlier about retrogressions would typically occur in August or September when we're nearing the limit and are running out of numbers. We always try to limit retrogressions to the last month or two of the fiscal year, because we know that is a tremendous inconvenience to applicants who have their cases in some form of processing. So our attempt is to minimize any inconvenience and then do a full recovery whenever possible for the month of October.
How much movements we can see for EB2 and EB3 in the upcoming months?
The EB2 and EB3 dates will continue to move somewhat. I'm not sure in terms of how much in the third preference. The third preference category has been reported to me by USCIS is the one category which they had the highest rate of new filings last fall. So they have a huge amount of cases in that category that they're going through. I can say that the USCIS offices across the country are maximizing their processing capacity. They're doing their best, and every effort is being made to fully utilize all the numbers. But it's important to remember that this fiscal 2021 employment annual limit is approximately 262,000. In a typical year, the employment limit would be in the 140 to 155,000 range average. So this is a huge increase, well over 100,000 extra numbers that they have for potential processing on a limited staff. They didn't suddenly get an influx of staff just because we had more numbers available this year. And that's a very important thing to remember, that even before the pandemic hit, most of our overseas State Department offices and USCIS offices in the States were pretty much processing at peak capacity.
How many visa wastages will be there for EB categories?
At this time, as I mentioned earlier, I could not even speculate how many numbers will not be used under the various annual limits. The best I can say is I would expect the amounts to be very large. Again, given the constraints that have been imposed on processing in the states and overseas because of the COVID situation. It would be somewhat unrealistic to expect that all the numbers could be used based on the limited processing ability posts and USCIS offices have had because of the COVID-19 issues, limiting, going into work, having people come in, and actually many of the applicants. So for example, if an applicant is required to get a medical or an updated medical, all of the current COVID-19 issues may be limiting the ability for them to get medicals, and that would also prevent the processing of the case.
When someone is downgrading an application from EB2 to EB3, will the applicant be counted in both the lines, since EB2 is valid?
The applicant's case, if it has been reported to me, is only counted in the original category they filed. So if they originally filed as an India second preference, but they're now attempting to have their case downgraded because the EB3 date is more advantageous, I don't really know of that demand until the downgrade has been approved. At that point, it would be removed from the India second preference information that I'm seeing about potential applicants, and at that time it would be reported in the India EB3 potential applicants. So I have limited visibility of the numbers during the downgrade process, and basically I don't care about it too much because that downgrade could take a month, 6 months, whatever. So I would not want to tie up numbers in the third preference on the assumption that I was going to get downgrades and they not materialize as quickly, and therefore not be able to utilize other numbers by moving the date.
Hope the information presented in the video is useful. U.S. Immigration Channel will be releasing a video when additional information is available on any of these program or regulations. If you have not subscribed, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to hit that notification bell. See you soon in our next video.